I certainly am very, very happy to be here this afternoon and to welcome you young people as students in this medical college. When we started, we had one student, and we've grown and grown until we have so many. I'm getting rather old, but I'm very happy to be here with this group today, and I hope I shall be here when you all graduate. And I hope you young people are going to go out and do great things for India and be representative of Vellore wherever you are.
Some 200 years ago, allopathic medical services in India were rare, extremely rare. A few doctors existed, some were military surgeons, a few were missionary doctors from the West, but all of these were men. Although women have arguably provided the bulk of healthcare throughout thousands of years of human history, entry into the profession of modern medicine was not an option. The idea of women practicing as doctors was frowned upon, or ridiculed, and consequently forbidden. In the mid-1840s, challenged by a dying friend, Elizabeth Blackwell, a young teacher in Cincinnati, United States, made up her mind to open the doors of medical education for women. She faced numerous rejections from medical schools due to her gender. However, her tenacity and perseverance eventually led her to Geneva Medical College, where she was accepted despite strong reservations from some faculty members. She excelled in her studies and demonstrated her dedication to the medical profession, and graduated at the top of her class in 1849, making history as the first woman in the United States to earn a medical degree. In India, the situation was exacerbated by social taboos that did not permit women to visit a mixed hospital or a male doctor. On the odd occasion, women did come seeking help in extremis, usually after many days in obstructed labor, with infections, bleeding, or ruptured wombs. There was little the doctors could do. This was the world into which Ida Sophia Scudder was born. Ida was the granddaughter of one of the world's first medical missionaries, the Reverend Dr. John Scudder, M.D., and his wife, Harriet Scudder. They had left the United States of America in 1819 and served for many years in Ceylon. Then, in 1836, the family moved to the city of Madras in South India. In 1849, the eldest of their 7 surviving sons, the Reverend Henry Martin Scudder, began his medical studies at the Madras Medical College. After his medical studies, the Reverend Dr. Henry Scudder, with his brothers William and Joseph Scudder, founded the Arcot Mission of the Reformed Church of America in the historic city of Arcot on the banks of the river Palar. Across the riverbed lay the British cantonment of Ranipet. And here, in 1866, another Scudder brother, Dr. Silas Downer Scudder, started the first hospital of the Arcot Mission, in buildings that once belonged to the British cavalry. Silas Scudder's hospital rapidly attracted many male patients. But social taboos, kept most women away from a mixed hospital or a male doctor. He made earnest efforts to train Indian women as birth assistants, but his pleas remained unanswered. And seriously ill, he returned to America. He died at the age of 44. The Ranipet Hospital passed into the care of Silas's youngest brother, the Reverend Dr. John Scudder II. On December 9, 1870, in the mission compound of Ranipet, John Scudder II and his wife Sophia Weld Scudder welcomed their sixth child, their first daughter. They named her Ida Sophia Scudder. She grew up a tomboy under the tutelage of her 5 older brothers. But early life was not all fun and games. During the mid to late 19th century, a series of famines hit British India. Hunger and lack of medical facilities killed millions of people. Families were wiped out. Villages vanished. Missionaries were asked to supervise the distribution of relief by the British government. A relief camp was opened at the mission compound, Vellore. Ida's parents worked tirelessly feeding and clothing the starving children. 6-year-old Ida and her siblings helped their parents in the relief work. They were exposed to the tragedies of starving children and the dying adults, as the famine claimed over 5 million lives in the region. These devastating memories were etched into the young mind of Ida Scudder. Later, the Scudder family spent time in America on furlough. And when her parents returned to India, Ida was left at the Northfield Seminary Girls' School. Not only was she scarred by her experiences in India, she was resentful that her parents had left her and chosen to return to that difficult work. Consequently, she was rebellious, mischievous, and often in trouble with her teachers. At 20, Ida had her own ideas of the life she wanted. She wanted to live her life like any other American girl.
Tried to get my clothes looking nicely so that I could look well on Monday. But oh my, I am so blue over it, for all my things look so badly. I must try to be more careful. It is so hard to go among girls looking so badly. I am so blue. I wish I had a lot of money.
The thought of becoming a missionary and going back to India was not even a remote possibility in her thinking. But in 1890, a cablegram came from her father in India. Her mother was ill. She needed help. Such an appeal was final for Ida. Reaching Dindivanam, a small town south of Vellore, she helped her mother run the local mission schools and the Zenanas, but dreamt of a very different life. The events of one night changed the course of her life.
One evening, I was sitting alone in my room, reading, when I heard steps on the veranda, and soon a knock. I went to the door and saw a Brahmin gentleman. I asked him if I could do anything for him. "Oh, yes, Amma," he said. "I so need your help. My wife, only a young girl of 14, is dying in childbirth. And Amma, she is such a lovely girl." But I replied, "I know nothing about childbirth. I cannot help you, but my father is a doctor, and I can bring him. He can save your little wife." Almost in horror, he raised his hands and bowed before me, saying, "I could not take a man into my house to care for my wife. No man can look upon my wife. If you cannot come, she must die. He left, and I sat down at my desk, feeling desperate. After some time, I heard footsteps. I ran to the door, thinking that the Brahmin had returned to take my father. Instead, there stood a Mohammedan, and with the same request. He too turned away, repeating the same words, "Oh, she must die." I felt I could not bear it, and again I heard footsteps in the same evening. Similar requests came from a third man. There was no sleep for me that night. I could not forget those 3 young women dying in childbirth when I could not help them.
The next morning, she heard the drums for the funeral procession. All the 3 women had died that night because there wasn't any woman doctor to take care. The incident made an indelible mark on her young mind. By the following morning, her decision was made. At 24 years of age, Ida entered the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. 40 years after Elizabeth Blackwell graduated top of her class, most reputed medical colleges still admitted only men. When Ida was entering her final year of medical studies, the reputed Cornell Medical College, New York, took its first batch of women. Ida and her classmate Nell cycled 100 kilometers from Pennsylvania to New York to join that first coeducational batch. Later, Nell would marry Ida's brother and serve as a doctor in Dindyvanam for over 3 decades. By late 1899, Ida had passed her medical exams and had booked her voyage back to India. Only a few weeks before she was to sail, a letter came from India. The mission board, accepting the suggestion of Dr. Louisa Hart, had approved a hospital exclusively for women and children in Vellore. Exciting as this was, it presented a considerable challenge for Ida Scudder. The board charged the newly qualified Dr. Ida with the responsibility of raising the $8,000 needed for the building. This was a significant amount of money in 1899. A far larger amount than the Women's Mission Board had ever raised. At last it was decided to ask for divine direction, and earnest prayer was offered that if the work was of the Lord's appointing, it might be made very clear to us.
Over the next few weeks, Ida met with women in churches presenting her case. But all that was raised was a few $100s. The task seemed impossible. After committing their dilemma to the Lord, Ida met Robert Shell, a retired banker and a member of the Marble Collegian Church, New York. As before, she presented the reality of the Indian women, dying young, leaving young husbands and children.
84-year-old Robert Shell, who still mourned the death of his wife of many years, gave 29-year-old Ida all that she had asked for and more, $10,000. He also purchased the equipment she would need for the hospital, to be built in memory of his late wife, Mary Tabor Shell. The Lord had indeed provided.
As Ida and her fellow missionaries left New York, the city was preparing to celebrate a once-in-a-lifetime event, the dawn of a new year in a new century.
On the 1st of January 1900, as the world celebrated the dawn of a new century, Ida and her friend Annie Hancock reached the fort town of Vellore. Now, it was simply a matter of completing her practical training under her father's expert and experienced hand, building the hospital, and Dr. Ida would be fulfilling the call on her life. 4 months later, her father passed away after an operation in Kodai Canal. Ida was bereft. Through most of her high school and medical school years in America, her father had been serving in India. And now, when she, the only one of his 6 children to become a doctor, was waiting to learn from him, he had been taken from her. Left with no mentor, limited practical training, no hospital. For a while she could not bear to take up a stethoscope again. Then one day, Ida entered the small 10 by 12 foot room off the downstairs veranda, opened wide the shuttered window, and began to move furniture about vigorously. "My dispensary," she announced briefly. "Are you sure it isn't too small, dear?" inquired her mother. The room was quite big enough, Ida assured her. There was the veranda where her patients could wait, a window on the shady side where she could give out medicines. Besides, it was only a few months until the hospital was built. That very day, she sent a servant into the town to spread the news that the sick and ailing were again welcome at the mission bungalow. Ida waited and waited, but no one came. Where were the crowds that had flocked to the dispensary when her father was alive? She was a woman. How could a woman be a doctor? After a few anxious days of waiting, finally a Jutka Bundy rolled up the driveway and a woman alighted with an eye infection. Carefully, Ida treated her. Success. The news spread. Soon patients began to come in increasing numbers. By the time a fortnight had passed, there were patients squatting in little groups on the veranda when Ida opened the dispensary each morning. By 1901, Ida's days were full, visiting patients in their homes in a horse-drawn Jutka before 8 in the morning, a milling outpatient clinic where she was doctor, nurse, and pharmacist, emergency calls from town. She was soon desperate for trained assistants, but in these early times, there were none. Ida improvised. Her first assistant had no medical training, but ample enthusiasm and common sense. She took on their cook's wife, Salome, teaching her to dress wounds, explain treatments, and dispense medicines. More beds were crowded into the tiny space. On 9th September 1901, the foundation stone for the hospital was laid. And in 1902, the Mary Table Shell Memorial Hospital opened its doors. The sight of high white wrought iron beds with wire spring bases and thick mattresses were not always acceptable to the patients who were accustomed to sleeping on mats on the floor. More than once, Ida returned to the wards to find a patient wrapped carefully in her sheet, sleeping on the safe floor under the bed instead of on it. Here in the well-equipped operation theater, she began to provide surgical care, with Salome learning to administer chloroform anesthesia. Over the next few years came Nyanambal, a trained compounder, who became Ida's loyal friend and dependable co-worker for the next half a century. Dr. Louisa Hart and her sister Lillian Hart, a trained nurse. The hospital began to train nursing and pharmacy assistants. When Delia Houghton, the new senior nurse, joined in 1909, a formal nurse training program began, Dr. Ida helping with the teaching. After opening, the hospital quickly began performing a range of surgeries, but Dr. Ida was aware that there was much greater need in the broader community. Again, Ida improvised, starting peripheral clinics initially by jutka and rail, and then by converting a bullock cart into a dispensary so that she could visit rural villages, and finally by car when Vellore's first motor vehicle, Peugeot, was donated to the hospital by her friend from America. At first, people in the villages would flee in terror at the arrival of the one-cylinder Peugeot coming towards them, yelling, "The devil is coming! The devil is coming!" After a few trips, however, the Peugeot's visits were eagerly anticipated. An American visitor was duly impressed when Dr. Ida, sitting on the driver's seat with the Peugeot's engine running, pulled out a patient's tooth. "If we let the engine stop," Dr. Ida explained, "we might not get it started again." Among the Peugeot's successors was an elastic 5-passenger car, which could accommodate 10 people, plus medicine boxes, powder bags, sterile dressings, and instruments. As in the hospital, a range of medical problems confronted Dr. Ida on her roadside clinic, requiring improvisation. There was the time when she found a bullock buggy with a woman in childbirth lying beside it on the ground, 2 wounded from misguided attempts at help to permit normal birth. There was no time to take her to the hospital. Hastily, Ida converted the buggy into an operating table. While the nurse handed her the instruments and the driver kept water boiling over a small oil stove, Ida worked to save the woman's life. And though the baby was born dead, the mother's life was saved. By the second decade of her work, Ida was beginning to become a victim of her own success. With over 100 outpatients in the daily dispensary, several hundred each week in roadside clinics, daily operating lists, overflowing wards, and obstructed deliveries at any time of day or night, when her medical colleague Louisa Hart moved to another hospital, Ida's friends were worried. Josephine Hopkins wrote, "It does seem too much, the burdens you have taken on your shoulders. Not only the hard work, but also the strain and the responsibility. I fear you will break down." But Ida could not give up on the call she had received.
Thousands are pleading with tears, beckoning to Shell Hospital to come and help them. And we have to cover our faces to hide from our vision those beckoning hands, and our hearts cry out in agony because we have not the time to help them, and those at home hide their faces too.
Dr. Ida alone was not enough. The needs of the people of India, and especially the needs of Indian women, were just as great as when she had started. And now Dr. Ida was exhausted and suffering the breakdown that her friends had feared. She was sent for a 3-month rest cure to an isolated bungalow in the secluded hill station of Kodai Canal. Kodai Canal, situated at an altitude of 7,000 feet, was established as a hill station by American missionaries in 1845 as a refuge from the high temperature and tropical diseases of the plains. There, thousands of feet above a deep, silent valley, she recovered from the wounds of apparent failure, of overwork and unmet need. It was here, in the calm of reflection, contemplation and prayer, that Dr. Ida, always the improviser, was inspired with a new vision. At the missionary conference in the summer of 1913, an impassioned Ida spoke up.
I propose that we start an interdenominational medical college to train women doctors in South India.
She faced immediate resistance. There was no money for such a project. The government would not give permission. Where would she find faculty staff? Would there be any students? The old prejudices still existed, not only in the West, but in India too. Despite the pessimism of the missionary conference, Ida was not the kind of person to give up easily, and there were those convinced of the vision. Renewed in health and enthusiasm, in August 1913, Ida was back in Shell Hospital. This time she was not alone. The young Dr. Lillian Cook had been recruited by the mission, and work in Shell Hospital began to expand again. Ida committed the vision to the Lord in prayer, and though she had not received much support in India, she did hear of a small group of American women on a world voyage, researching the needs of women missionaries. Although Vellore was not on their itinerary, Ida wrote to the leader of the group, an American Baptist, Lucy Peabody, inviting them to visit the hospital. The party broke journey at Katpadi Railway Junction and came to Shell Hospital. There they met the women who served in the hospital, women who had been treated at the hospital, and women whose daughters, given the opportunity, could meet the medical needs missionaries would never hope to fill. Peabody wrote in the visitor's book, "With most loving memories of a Christ-like work." Her friend Helen Montgomery wrote, "A great work by a great woman has been disclosed to us all at Shell Hospital." Ida had impressed her visitors. Although they were strangers from different professions and different Christian denominations, both could see the need and the potential. Peabody assured Ida that she would mobilize the women of hundreds of churches to build a women's medical school in Vellore. Next, Ida engaged the help of Colonel John Atkinson of the government of Madras, convincing him of Vellore's need for a bigger hospital and suggesting the ideal area outside the town for the buildings. Colonel John Atkinson promised to help. Supplied with these developments, only a year after Ida's proposal, the Kodai Canal Missionary Conference recorded a minute in favor of the proposal. Filled with confidence once again, Dr. Ida prepared for her 1914 furlough to America, with a mandate to raise money for a medical college. Her mind was alive with ways to present the needs of Indian women to Americans. Little did she know that her hope of raising funds were to be shattered by events across the world. Far away in Eastern Europe, a young man fired 2 bullets from a pistol, killed an archduke, and plunged the world into the First World War. It would claim 18 million lives. Money was in short supply, It was difficult to convince people to give money for a hospital expansion project in faraway India, when the focus was on the bloody battlefields of Europe, where soldiers were losing their lives. Life and death issues were facing the Shell Hospital doctors too. 2 ships carrying Arcot missionaries back to India were torpedoed. Reverend Beatty died aboard Lusitania. Ida's precious doctor colleague Lillian Cook was on a voyage back from Scotland to India when her ship, Persia, was attacked by German submarines. The ship sank within a few minutes. Just as the ship was breaking down, Lillian dove into the sea and managed to swim to a lifeboat. A week later, Lillian reached Bombay and married her fiancé, Reverend John Warnsius, an Arcot missionary stationed in Vellore. During her wartime furlough, Ida had been able to raise only a few $1,000s. The medical school was still a distant dream. Ida's real solution, however, was to fight on her knees.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking.
Just when all sources of funding seemed closed, another source became providentially available. Laura Spelman Rockefeller, wife of the world's richest man. In her will, she left $200,000 for Lucy Peabody to use for women's missions. Peabody set aside $50,000 for Ida Scudder's medical college in Vellore. The money brought its own problems. Why should the women's medical college be in the small town of Vellore? Instead, it could be built next to the forthcoming arts college in Madras, the capital city, the presidency, said some mission boards. But what a women's medical college needed, even more than college buildings, was a busy, well-run hospital. The governor of Madras Presidency, Baron Pentland, came to inspect Shell Hospital and was pleased with what he saw. The medical school would be in Vellore, the government decided, and they gave permission for land to be purchased. In June 1917, Lucy Peabody transferred $10,000 to purchase the land near the Vellore jail. 4 years on from Dr. Ida receiving the vision for the medical school, the doors were open for the dream to become a reality. Colonel Reginald Bryson of the Indian Medical Service came to see the proposed site. With great enthusiasm, Ida pointed out the sites for buildings to come. Here will be the hospital, and here will be the student hostel. On the ground, Colonel Bryson could only see dry scrub land. But before him he saw a woman with great enthusiasm, vision, and determination. And more than anything, it's vision and determination that makes dreams into reality. Could Ida start the medical school within a year? The government asked. With the World War still raging, there was a great shortage of doctors. Of course she would. But there was the matter of hostels, no faculty, no buildings, and no students. The interim committee of the medical school worked fast. Dr. Ida Scudder was appointed principal. A second faculty member, Dr. McPhail, was borrowed from another mission hospital in South India. What about laboratories? Could they rent the labs in the local Buddhist college? The girls would use it early morning before the college started classes. What about hostels? 2 bungalows had recently been vacated near the road, not far from Buddhist College. They were quickly taken on rent. A thatched shed was put up to serve as a dissection hall. A chemistry professor, Mr. Thomas Harris, from the local college, was employed part-time. Dr. Mary Samuel, a newly qualified Indian assistant physician, was appointed dissection demonstrator. Ida quickly wrote a 1-page advertisement. The applications began to come in. Of the 150 applicants, only 17 were eligible for admission, a number that had dwindled to 14 within the first year. On August 12, 1918, Baron Pentland, Governor of Madras, inaugurated the Missionary Medical School for Women, offering the LMP Sub-Assistant Surgeon's course. Colonel Bryson had come for the inauguration too, and knowing that the school had very little, he brought a special gift in tightly shuttered boxes. It was a skeleton, the one skeleton for the first batch of students who would be starting their medical studies in Vellore. Dr. Ida's welcome to students was representative of the education she delivered. The molding of heart and hands, soul and mind.
In facing a new year of work, we are glad to welcome you among us as women with a great and earnest purpose in life. We hope by your coming that each one of us here may be strengthened. A new outlook upon life and service will be had during the years you are here at Vellore, but each of us must do her part. From today, you must be young women, not children, upon whom we can rely. Young women who are dependable, young women full of an earnestness and zeal which is going to make you iron pillars in India, strong, safe, pure. May it always be said, oh, that young doctor comes from Vellore, yes. Employ her. She will be worthwhile. She will be dependable. You cannot do better than to have her.
Kamala Israel, from the second batch of 1919, remembers those early days.
We were young. We were shy. Yet in us, Dr. Scudder had firm faith. In our preclinical years, she was the teacher of anatomy, chemistry, and psychology. Later, she taught surgery, gynecology and obstetrics, and medical jurisprudence, as well as anatomy. Dr. Scudder was a wonderful teacher. Red, blue, and yellow tapes attached to a skeleton helped the memory to picture courses of vessels and nerves. White tapes represented muscles and could be pulled to show muscle action. We used to sleep with bones under our pillows and steal them at night from under the pillow for study. Her morning rounds were sometimes done before she came to the early morning class, and the night rounds were done at about 10 o'clock. Then she used to work at her desk until about 12 in the night. In all our school life, we were her loved daughters.
Nevertheless, with their one skeleton and few books between them, how would these girls perform? In his speech at the inauguration, Colonel Bryson of the Indian Medical Service had warned the students.
There is this severe and critical examination board, absolutely fair and strictly just. It is not prepared to allow any backsliding from the standard laid down as a minimum for a qualified medical practitioner. In your hands will rest the reputation of your alma mater.
It was with trepidation that the 14 girls of the first batch of 1918 went up to Madras for their exams. The average of pass percentages for the LMP schools that year was 34%. Realistically, how many would pass? It was Colonel Bryson, the one who had warned them a year earlier just how hard the examinations would be, who broke the news in a note to Dr. Ida.
I don't know when you will have your results sent to you, so I'm writing to let you know that all 14 girls have passed. I am so pleased. Yours sincerely, Bryson.
Ida's girls had surpassed the records of LMP schools in the Madras Presidency. With renewed zeal and confidence, Dr. Ida and the students marched on, facing the challenges ahead. By 1919, the influenza pandemic had reached Vellore. Many patients and staff succumbed to the flu in Shell Hospital. Landlords asked the medical school to vacate the rented buildings. A hostel was quickly built on a 5-acre plot in the center of town and was named the Rachel Philbrown Nurses' Home, honoring a young bride whose wedding gifts had been given as a donation to the school. Here in an upstairs room of the bungalow, Dr. Ida met the students for weekly prayers. Canadian doctors Jessie Findlay and her sister Elizabeth Findlay were recruited as full-time faculty. How would the first graduation day be celebrated? The medical school, as yet, had no classrooms or assembly hall or teaching hospital. Dr. Ida's grandniece, Ruth Scudder, and Jessie Findlay planned the graduation program. The college colors were chosen, silver and blue, and to those colors, the words of the college song were written by faculty member Jessie Findlay. A white tent was erected on the 5-acre town site, and on 24th March 1922, the first graduation ceremony was held. Ida's heart was full. "Oh, how I wish you could have seen them," she wrote. In the softest of white silk saris and the class colors of blue and silver, they marched onto that platform. 14 dear, brave, sweet girls prepared to go out and take healing to India. Hardly a dry eye in the audience. I think in all of my life, I would never again experience that thrill of joy and thanksgiving. Addressing her first graduates, Dr. Ida's words of inspiration remain true for every year's graduate since.
The thrill of having accomplished much gives you joy, but much lies before you of work to be done. Surrounding every mountain peak there are valleys, and into these valleys one must go before they can attain the greater heights. Face trials with a smile, with head erect and a calm exterior. If you are fighting for the right and for a true principle, be calm and sure and keep on until you win. You will make mistakes, but be ready always to acknowledge them. Do not live planning great things for tomorrow, dreaming of a great future. Have your highest ambition that of doing each day's work well. May the blessing of quietness, of assurance, and of a wisdom which is pure, peaceable, gentle, full of mercy and good fruits be yours always. And last and greatest of all, may you follow always in the footsteps of the great physician, Christ. In the future, may we together help India to take her right stand among the great nations of the world.